My hormones controlled 90% of my brain. If I wasn't thinking about sex, I was dreaming about it. Aren't all boys like this? What was the remaining 10%? Of course, cars and motorcycles. School was also on the list, but only about 2%, just enough to pass. In my 20s, I lusted after every woman on the planet. I lost my virginity on my 20th birthday and mentally slept with every girl I met. I tried to go to college, but the money ran out after a year. I met the love of my life, Anne, joined the Marines for 2 years, and then married her as soon as I got out. My sex life was like something out of a dream. We tried everything. After 2 years of marriage, we got deeply into debt after buying a small 2-room house. To my horror, Anne became pregnant and gave birth to our first son 9 months later. Someone closed, or rather slammed, the damn door on my carefree life, and I was unhappy about it. In those days, if you knew you had a bun in the oven, you didn't get rid of it. You just gritted your teeth and carried on with your life. Our nice 2-seater car was replaced with a family car, and we no longer drove anywhere just like that. We had to plan for it and take half the house with us. Love affairs were reduced from 9 times a week to 2 or 3. A newborn baby will do this to you. It's okay, it will get better when he grows up, I thought. But this never happened. That is life. Our 30s were spent trying to make ends meet. We now had another son and a new, bigger house because 2 rooms were no longer enough for us. With a bigger house came a bigger mortgage, which meant longer work hours. Overtime has become not a luxury, but a necessity. Now we didn't buy everything we wanted. A new word has been added to our vocabulary: needs. Needs, not desires, now rule our lives. We planned and saved for every purchase. Any money left over at the end of the month was put aside for a future emergency or to pay off one of our credit cards that suddenly appeared out of nowhere. We were happy, but my stress levels were high. Love affairs now became something we had to squeeze into our busy schedules. It wasn't the great sex it used to be. It was more like something along the lines of "hurry up" or "not so loud, the kids will hear us." Our 6-month date weekend, when one of our parents looked after the boys, was now spent trying to get to know each other again. Anne complained that she was out of shape and was going on another diet, which meant that I would be on a diet with her. At 5'3" and weighing no more than 130 pounds, she was still sexy in my eyes. Since she cooked all the food, my portions went from decent to measly. I had gained a few pounds and was no longer the skinny kid I had been in my 20s and early 30s, but I was still far from fat. The sex was still good, but now it was only once instead of 2 or 3 times a night like before when we first met. We made love 5 times in 48 hours that weekend, and Anne accused me of trying to wear her out. "I'm not as young as I used to be," she complained. "I can't do this all night like I used to." Neither could I, but at least I didn't need that little blue pill yet. Our 40s were spent trying to get our children out of the house. With our salary increases over the last 10 years, we now had a little more money on hand, even with 2 boys in college. Thank God for student loans. Luckily, they both went to local college, so we didn't have to pay for living expenses, but their other expenses skyrocketed. It was all worth it when they both graduated from college and moved out of home. Yes, finally an empty nest. However, Anne replaced the children with other activities, ranging from going to the gym, dancing, and, finally, getting involved in politics. From our 30s to our 40s, our lovemaking didn't increase, but it didn't decrease either. My time will come again, I kept telling myself. Our 50s were supposed to be our time. The children were no longer dependent on us, and for the first time in years we could do anything. We went on several cruises, and I thought we were going to have the best time of our lives. But then something happened that I didn't plan for: a hormonal pause. "It's not fair, it's just not fair," I repeated to myself over and over again. My wife was going through her own changes, and I was going through my own. Her hormones were going crazy, and her mood swings were off the charts. She tried for a while to control everything through food and herbs, but it ended in failure. Finally, she went to the doctor and got medicines to control her body chemistry. She still had fluctuating temperatures and no longer cried at everything, but she still had occasional mood swings and night sweats. It was all bad, but the final nail in the coffin was when Anne lost her sexual desire. Not completely, but enough that once every 3 weeks is more than enough for her. I endured my 30s and 40s knowing I had something to look forward to, and I felt cheated. I had been doing my job for the last 20 years, and now I could do it in my sleep. I had risen to the point where my salary was now more than double what it was when I started, and all the stress that had built up over the years was now gone. I was like a teenager born again. My wife could no longer get pregnant no matter what I did. We no longer had money problems, and my sexual desire was again through the roof. Anne has mostly maintained her sexy curves, and I was always trying to get a little of that. Damn it, I tried to get a lot. For the love of all that is holy, Steve, can't you control yourself? I'm trying to make dinner, and I can't do it and fight you off at the same time, she yelled at me. Then let's skip dinner and have some fun. Do you remember how we lived on the same love? I said, trying to get a kiss. Fuck off, buddy, or you won't get anything at all, she replied, trying to finish our dinner. Was I upset? Yes, but what the hell could I do? Should I refuse her? I said to myself. So after a while, I just let it go. I didn't make any attempts and waited for her to be the aggressor to see how long it would take, or how long she can hold out. A month later, Anne told me that she was grateful that I didn't hover over her and grab her every time she walked by. I can't believe this, I said to myself. She thanked me for not having sex with her. I need a plan, I told myself. Anne and I went to spinning classes on Thursdays and Fridays, and usually went to the gym together on Mondays and Tuesdays. I had been pretty friendly with 2 women at my spin class and 1 at the gym, so I decided to see if they could help me get my sex life back on track. You want us to do what? Beth asked as Cindy watched. I need you to flirt with me, I told them. Not right in front of her, but when she's there, if that makes sense, I told them. Let me get this straight. You want us to make Anne jealous? And do you think this will help you somehow? Cindy asked. I just want her to think that other women find me attractive and desirable so that she might appreciate me a little more, I told them, and it wasn't a lie. Tammy from the gym also agreed and thought it might be fun. She, like me, was a runner, and we often ran and talked on treadmills. I didn't know exactly how old she was, but she was younger than me. She had the typical runner's body, tall, slender, with small breasts and short blonde hair. She was pretty, in great shape, and sure to catch Anne's attention. We decided that the best thing to do would be to meet at the gym and go for a run together. That way we could both train and be together out of Anne's sight at the gym. My plan began to work. Cindy and Beth made a point of talking to me before and after class. I helped Cindy set up her exercise bike, and Beth asked me to share my water bottles because she forgot hers. It took about 2 weeks before Anne actually noticed and finally said something one night after class while I was talking to them. Come on, Steve, I'm hungry and I want to go home, she shouted to me. Just a second, honey, I said, returning to my conversation with Beth and Cindy for another 10 to 15 seconds. See you tomorrow, I told them, turning and heading to our car, where Anne was waiting. What's taking so long? She asked. We were just discussing the activity and comparing Chris's class to Jamie's class, that's all. Well, I'm hungry, so let's go, she said, looking at me. When Tammy invited me to go on another run with Anne, I thought she was going to explode. Honey, your knees mean you can't run anymore, and it's nice to have someone to run with for a change. I'll just meet you at home when we're done, I told an annoyed Anne. On Thursday, Cindy touched my arm while laughing at a supposed joke, and Beth hugged me for helping me set up the pedals during Friday's class. Anne just stood there looking at us, and when I got back to the car, I could tell it was ready to explode. They're getting too friendly, she stared at me. What are you talking about? Anne, this is Beth and Cindy. For God's sake, they're just friendly. I don't sleep with them, do I? I just don't like it when they touch you. Neither of them are married, and I don't want them to get any ideas, she told me as we pulled up to our house. Anne, listen to yourself. Do you feel threatened by Cindy and Beth? I guess you're right, she said, still looking at me. When I came home 25 minutes late from the gym after running with Tammy, I was bombarded with questions. Why am I late? Where did we run? And why didn't I call if I knew I'd be late? And I don't carry my cell phone with me when I run. And it was such a beautiful night that we decided to run the extra mile, I told her. We ran past the hospital and then past her apartment before stopping in for a quick drink of water, I told her. Did you go to her apartment? She asked. Yeah, just for a minute to drink some water, I said in my most sincere voice. She has a really nice place. Although it's small, her bedroom is huge. The seed was planted. What the hell were you doing in her bedroom? Anne shouted at me. She just showed me the apartment while I was drinking water. What are we having for dinner? I said, deliberately changing the subject. I don't want you in any girl's bedroom, do you hear me? She shouted. Okay, no more bedrooms. Are you satisfied now? I asked. So, what are we having for dinner? It had been a while since we'd had sex, and when Anne asked if I was interested tonight, for the first time in our marriage, I said no. You don't want to have sex with me today? Anne was surprised. I had a cramp in my leg while jogging today, and it's starting to get tight again, I told her. Why don't we wait a couple of days until I'm in shape? I suggested. First-time refusal. How does that make you feel, Anne? I thought to myself. Okay, said Anne. Just let me know when you're ready, she said irritably. It was another 4 days before she spoke about it again. Why don't we have sex anymore? Anne asked Thursday night after dinner. What are you talking about? We have sex all the time, I replied. It's been 26 days since we had sex. I'm keeping track. She threw a calendar at me. See for yourself. The last time we had sex was April 16th. I looked at it and April 16th was circled in red. I'm not saying you're lying, it just doesn't feel like that much time has passed. You don't kiss me, hug me, or even initiate sex with me anymore, she said in an accusing tone. Wait a minute. Aren't you always complaining that I'm always attacking you? That I'm acting like some love-hungry teenager and you don't care? Or maybe it was another woman thanking me for leaving her alone, I said sarcastically. Make up your mind, Anne. Do you want sex or not? What the hell do you want? Not wanting to give in, Anne took the lead. Well, if you're not getting it from me, Steve, who are you sleeping with? It's probably that Beth, or you're giving tours of Tammy's bedroom again, she said, getting even angrier. Anne, I don't get sex from anyone but you, and not much, it seems, I said with a smile, hoping to diffuse the situation. It didn't work. If I even think you're cheating on me, I'll cut it off for you, she screamed at me. It was a joke, honey. Just my sick way of making jokes, I tried to explain to her before she slammed the door. I tried to start something that night, but all I got was her back. Maybe you should call Beth or Tammy. Maybe they will have time for you, was all she said. Anne was angry all weekend. I tried to apologize several times, but nothing worked. Damn, my plan was worse than failure. At least I used to get something, but now I don't even get anything. On Tuesday, I went for a run with Tammy. At least I had a friendly face to count on every other night we ran together. Today, I need you to push me hard. I have a 10K race on Sunday morning, and I want to see how fast I can go, Tammy explained. We've been running at her pace for the past month, but today she wanted to run at my pace. I started out slow for the first half mile and then picked up the pace for the next mile and a half. Are you getting old, Steve, or is this all you can do? She teased me. Okay, girl, hold on to your panties and see if you can keep up with me, I replied. I picked up the pace more than 2 levels, and we ran the next 3 miles at almost race pace. With a quarter mile to go, I started yelling at her to speed up. Come on, girl, move. Don't give up now. I screamed at her. When I saw her apartment complex, I started sprinting. Come on, Tammy, tighten up. Don't leave anything in reserve, I shouted, and we both gave it our all. I thought she was going to throw up when we reached her parking lot. Good job, I told her as we both walked around trying to catch our breath. If you run like that on Sunday, no one will catch you, I said, high-fiving her before she hugged me tightly, covered in sweat. Thank you, I needed this. Are you sure you don't want to run the race with me on Sunday? She asked. I promised Anne I would take her to brunch at Tony's to apologize. She's been on edge for the last 2 weeks, and I'm trying to get on her good side, and maybe in bed too, I said with a smile. Well, come on over. I'll get you some Gatorade and send you home, she said as we walked into her house hand in hand. After 2 small drinks, I headed out for the 2-mile run back to my house. I didn't see Anne when I walked through the door, so I headed over to take a well-deserved shower. I showered, shaved, and brushed my teeth. I was just getting out of the shower when I saw Anne at the door. Wash away the evidence, she said, placing her hands on her hips. What? I said that I didn't believe what I thought I had just heard from Anne. You heard me, she said, turning and walking down the hallway. What the hell did I do? I said as I finished drying myself. I found Anne pacing back and forth in our bedroom. I can't believe you slept with her. You're almost old enough to be her father. Anne, what the hell are you talking about? Don't play dumb with me. I'm not that stupid, she shot back at me. Today, I kept an eye on you too. After your run, I saw the 2 of you heading towards her apartment hand in hand. I waited for you to come out and left 10 minutes later. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out what 2 of you were doing there. Anne, are you unconscious? Just listen to yourself. I came in for a couple of Gatorades, that's all. No hugging, no kissing, and definitely no sex. If you want, let's go to bed right now. I'll show you that I still have a full tank. You will never touch me again, she spat back at me. I think I should have thought before I answered. What else is new? I said, which only made her angrier. Our emotions took over as we traded insults like a couple of little kids, trying to hurt each other as much as possible. I tried to make my way back for the next 20 minutes after the bedroom door slammed in my face. I sat in the hall with my back against the door and listened non-stop to Anne crying for the next 2 hours. After that, it became quiet. I knocked on the door several times but received no answer. I went down to the kitchen, made something to eat, and spent the night on the couch trying to figure out how to get my ass out of this situation. I woke up around 6:30 and went upstairs to the empty bedroom. The bed was mixed up, but it was no longer there. Sometime during the night, Anne slipped out of our house and went somewhere. I took a shower and got dressed for work. It's been a long day. I emailed her at work a dozen times asking for forgiveness before loading the voicemail account on her cell phone, but received no response. After work, I went to look for her, and when I came home to an empty house, Anne walked into the gym and looked around the training area before noticing her. Tammy had just gotten off the stepper, wiping the sweat off herself and the stepper, when she felt the impact. "Leave my husband alone," she screamed. "Find yourself a man and stop sleeping with mine, you woman of easy virtue." Anne picked the wrong girl, that's for sure. "Bitch, don't ever lay your hand on me again, or I'll wash the floor with you. I'm not sleeping with your damn husband, but after this, if he asks me, I'll be more than happy. Borrow it. It's not my problem that you can't satisfy your man," Tammy said as she walked away. Anne lay there for another 20 seconds before one of the trainers helped her to her feet. "Are you okay?" he asked. "No. I don't think I'll ever be okay again," she replied, walking outside as a stunned group of people looked on. "I can never show my face there again," she said as she got into the car. She drove to her son Kenny's house. His wife Lisa met her at the door and asked what the hell happened to her face. "Lisa, questions later, bring me some ice, please." A bag of frozen peas, taken for 20 minutes, reduced the swelling, but Anne could see that she could not escape the mark. "Anne, who did this to you?" asked Lisa. "I did this to myself," was all she said. When Kenny returned home a short time later, he was in shock, although his mother did not tell him how she got the black eye. "Daddy didn't do this to you, did he?" "No. Your father has never laid a hand on me in all the years I've known him. He was the kindest and most understanding person I have ever known. I'm just sorry I sent him away. I hope his next wife will be more to his liking. Kenny finally got through to me on my cell phone. Dad, you urgently need to come here. Something is wrong with Mom, and she's not right in the head. I don't know what happened, but I think you should take her to the hospital immediately, my son said. I never thought Anne would end up with Kenny because Anne didn't really care about Lisa. She thought that Lisa put too much pressure on Kenny so that they could achieve something better in life. Who would have known? And what happened to your face? I asked, entering the living room. Steve, let's just go home, Anne said, standing up and grabbing my hand. The ride was quiet until Anne spoke. Tammy and I had a fight at the gym. I told her to stay away from you after I hit her. She hit me back and said she's not sleeping with you. As you can see, I got the worst of our conversation, Anne said as we pulled into the garage. When we walked into the house, I should have grabbed her and told her how much I loved her and that she was all I cared about. Instead, I did something really stupid. I told her the truth and said I was just trying to make her jealous. When I tried to explain what I did and why, she just looked at me without saying anything. But it didn't last long. Mount St. Anne was about to erupt. Let me put this straight. Did you do this with Beth, Cindy, and Tammy to make me jealous so I'd have more sex with you, right? You let me make a complete ass of myself in front of 30 people at the gym because you wanted to get back in my pants. Was this all just some stupid game of yours? Is that all you think about me? Just a toy that you can have sex with. What happened to me? Your loving wife, your partner, the mother of your damn children, Anne said, bombarding me with question after question. You pathetic piece of shit, get out of my sight, Anne screamed as she stepped forward. Anne, I did this for us, I tried to say when she hit me to get the hell away from her and her house. Anne took the canisters from the counter and threw them at me, along with everything else that came to hand. I have never seen her so angry as she kept screaming and screaming for me to leave. I left for no other reason than to defuse the situation and let it cool down. But that did not happen. When I returned home that evening, she was no longer there. I later found out that she returned to my son's house. On Thursday, after I left for work, Lisa came home and took some more of her clothes. I spent the rest of the week eating crow and trying to get Anne to talk to me. I later found out that she was talking to both Beth and Cindy and was also falling in love with them. As I said, my plan failed. I spent the next week calling, emailing her at work, and even stopping by my son's house to talk to her. Nothing helped. Mommy doesn't want to see you, Dad, or talk to you, Kenny told me. Just let me talk to her for a minute, I begged him. Sorry, Dad, I think you really screwed up this time, he told me. On Friday, I was in for the surprise of a lifetime. Mr. Stephen Moore? The man asked when I opened the door in sportswear. Yes, can I help you? You've been served, have a nice day, he said, handing me a manila envelope. I didn't even read the documents. 2 minutes later, I was in the car and heading to my son's house. My son met me on the steps. Son of a bitch, you let me be taken by surprise, I shouted at him. Where the hell is she? She and Lisa left because they knew you would be here sooner or later. Well then, I'll just wait for them, damn it, I told my son. I can't let you do this, Dad, Kenny told me. Why not? I asked. Mom asked me not to do it, was his only answer. Well, you better call the police now, because I sure as hell won't leave. The little idiot did just that. I was removed from his property and a restraining order was issued against me 24 hours later. I got angry and changed the locks on the house. Two could play this game. My other son, Jimmy, tried to calm things down, but everyone told him to stay out of it. It became very unpleasant when Anne tried to take her clothes from the house. Lisa and Kenny came to the door, but I didn't let them in. Get the hell off my property or I'll call the police, I yelled at them through the door. Dad, we want to take Mom's clothes, he asked. I cannot, unless you have a court order and receipts. Kenny got angry and tried to break into the house. The police escorted an angry Kenny and Lisa off my property. Payback is a bitch. I threw the divorce papers in the trash and told her I wouldn't sign them. I didn't have a lawyer, and I avoided her at every turn. I never answered phone calls, emails, and never answered the door unless I knew who it was, same at work. If she wanted a divorce, she had to work hard for it. I thought maybe she would soften up a little over time. I guess I was wrong. After 6 months of fighting, I thought I was getting a little better until Anne started dating and made sure I knew about it. She went back and forth and rubbed my nose into it at every opportunity. Tom said I was the best partner he had had in years. Anne's email said, "Just thought you might like to know that not everyone thinks I'm some dried-up husk of a woman." The attached photo of her in bed with him was enough to ruin that week and the next 6 months. I wrote off Anne, Kenny, Lisa, and for a while my other son Jimmy. I did something stupid and lost everything. I fell into a deep depression and ended up on medication and seeing a psychologist. Once a week, I would pour my heart out to her and tell her what a stupid ass I was. But after 3 months, she made me realize that it wasn't entirely my fault. From day one, I kept a journal, recording my feelings for Anne and everyone else. I lamented how I had allowed my life to go wrong and how Anne and I were no longer communicating. I started traveling for work for the first time in 10 years. It took my mind off my problems and allowed me to stand on my own 2 feet. From time to time, I would meet someone I knew, and they would say how sorry they were to hear that Anne and I had split up. Then they added that they saw her with so and so, as if I really wanted to know. I stopped spinning and gave up my gym membership. It was no use running into other people I knew who seemed to take great pride in telling me how well Anne was doing. The only constant in my life was that I was still running like a man possessed. One Sunday morning, I was going for a long run when I heard a familiar voice behind me. "I thought you moved or died," Tammy said, catching up to me. "Only inside," I told her, slowing my pace so she could keep up. "I feel responsible for what happened," she said, stopping. "It's not your fault. I started it, and it looks like I finished it," I told her. "Well, you look like shit. Why don't you come over sometime, and I'll make you a home-cooked meal. Of course you know where I live. Maybe I'll take you up on your offer when I get back to town. I'll at least call." "How about this?" I told her. "Well, I'll allow it this time. Remember, you owe me a call when you get back," she said, hugging me and kissing me. I planned to take 4 days off before heading out on a 2-week trip to visit our clients in the Northeast. It was my boss's idea. "Get out of here for a couple of weeks. You're just performing your duties mechanically, and you need to get your head and butt back on track. Take a tour of the Northeast Territories, and I'll see you when you get back. Remind me that you applied for a few days of vacation." "Okay, so I won't see you for 3 weeks. It's okay, the world won't stop turning if you're not there. Just make sure Katie is aware and your team leaders know what to do. Have a nice trip, find someone, and see you when you get back." On Tuesday morning, I woke up in an almost good mood. I put on shorts and sneakers and went for a long run. The weather was perfect, and I used this time to clear my head and plan where my life would go in the coming months. I think I'll sell the house. It's too big for just me, and I can rent an apartment until I decide where I'm going to stay. I took some money out of the bank and bought a small studio apartment in Sarasota, Florida. I was now planning to retire there in 3 or 4 years. Anne and I talked about this years ago, and it looks like I'll do it myself. Passing by a large Catholic church, I waited impatiently for the traffic light in front of the school. I almost ran a red light because I only saw one car, but for some unknown reason I decided to wait. The light turned green and I began to cross, as did a group of schoolchildren and their teacher on the other side. What made me look, I don't know. I just noticed that the car wasn't going to stop. I yelled at the kids to get back on the sidewalk, but they just stopped and stared at the crazy man yelling at them. I ran 15 yards with my arms outstretched, breaking the world record. I pushed all 10 children, including the teacher, backwards, knocking most of them to the ground. That's all I remember. I tried to open my eyes, but only one opened. I had a hard time concentrating and getting my brain to work. I saw two faces looking at me as I tried to say something. "Can you tell me your name?" "Who is Anne?" they asked. I raised my head a little, and then everything went black again. The next time I woke up, I felt something pressed against my forehead. It took me a few minutes to try to take it all in, but I still didn't understand. I raised my right hand and saw many tubes, the same on my left. The dark-haired, olive-skinned angel moistened my lips and dripped a few drops of liquid into my open mouth. I think I looked like a baby trying to get a juicy worm. "Don't try to talk. You have been in an accident and are in the hospital. Don't try to raise your head, just relax. Do you know your name?" she asked. I heard the question and understood it, but my body didn't respond, and I couldn't respond. I got angry, and then again I found myself in some kind of state of oblivion. I actually managed to push everyone back onto the sidewalk and beyond. "Everyone except yourself." The driver finally tried to brake, but ended up hitting me at full speed while I was in the air, pushing everyone backwards. I ended up with 2 broken legs, 4 cracked ribs, a punctured lung, a concussion, and a broken nose, as well as many scrapes and bruises. I was in a terrible state. The teacher said I said Anne's name before I passed out and went into a 15-day coma. The nurse said that I was coming out of her, but after a couple of minutes, I fell back into unconsciousness for 5 days. I had no documents with me, and my face was swollen and covered with scratches. A local news station was playing a story about a local hero who risked his life to save a class of first graders and a teacher. Nobody knew who I was, and they asked the public for help in identifying me. They described my appearance, but did not publish a photo of my face because it was in terrible condition and no one responded. Tammy was eating dinner and watching the news when they again asked for help identifying the hero runner. When she heard that it was near the big Catholic church on 10th Street, she put down her fork. "This is our route," she told herself. She skipped most of the story and called the news station. "Runner," she asked, "can you describe him again?" "He's about 5'10" or 11 inches, brown hair, and about 175 pounds, Tammy was told. "You think you know who he is?" they asked. "I need to make a quick call. I will contact you," she replied. "Pick up the phone, damn it, pick up the phone," she screamed into the phone. "To hell with it," she said, running out of her apartment, jumping into her car and driving out. "Please, please, please don't be what I think about," she told herself as she pulled up to Steve's house. His car was parked at the garage, and after 5 minutes of knocking on the door, she tried to look through the windows. "Can I help you?" the man asked as she walked back to the front of the house. "Have you seen Steve recently? I'm his friend and I can't find him," she explained. "Last I heard, he was going away for a couple of weeks, but that was a long time ago. I mowed his lawn the last 2 times, but no, I didn't see him. It was a shame that he and the missus separated. He took it hard," he told her. "Do you have a key to his house?" she asked. "I have a key, but only in case of emergency." "Trust me, this is an emergency," Tammy said loudly. It seemed that someone had gone out to get a newspaper and had not returned. The coffee was prepared but not brewed. There were bagels and butter on the kitchen counter, and the bathroom light was still on. "Which hospital is he in?" Tammy asked the news station as she recorded and left again. "Just lock the house. I have a bad feeling I know where Steve is," she said as she drove away. His face was still swollen and puffy from his broken nose. The wounds began to heal, and it took Tammy no more than a minute to confidently identify him. He mentioned Anne's name a few times, and he's no longer in a coma, but he's not fully back yet, his personal nurse told Tammy. When he was in a coma, the church sent someone every day to read to him. "He's kind of our resident celebrity," the nurse said with a smile, gently brushing the hair off his forehead. "His name is Stephen Moore, and he lives at 1725 Southeast 12th Street, I told her as she wrote it all down. I gave her the name of the company he worked for and told her that Anne was his ex-wife. I gave her my name and phone number and asked her to keep me informed of his condition. I can't believe no one noticed Steve was missing. Hell, his staff didn't even bother to check on him when he didn't show up. What about his children? Then I remembered that after the divorce, Steve didn't talk to them anymore after they took Anne's side in the divorce. I was going to call them when I got home, but the news station beat me to it. Latest news crashed into one of the evening TV series. The subject of St. Mary's Church has been positively identified as Stephen Moore of Orlando, Florida, officials said. He is still at Mercy Hospital recovering from his injuries. The only word he uttered after his heroic efforts was to cry out Anne's name. So Anne, if you're there, Steve is looking for you. Even national news stations picked up the story. I think everyone wanted to hear some good news for a change. Almost everyone found out immediately. Steve's family and friends called each other and flooded the hospital, where they were greeted by a completely angry Tammy. He's been in a coma for 30 days and no one has looked for him? What kind of family does he have? She yelled at them as they all came up with one excuse or another. All he wanted was to get back his ideal life, his 2 sons and his wife, whom he loved more than life itself. And instead of talking to him and trying to solve this problem, you all caught him off guard and threw him on the trash heap. You make me sick. So go home to your wonderful life and leave him the hell alone because none of you deserve him. I think he's shown everyone what he's made of, and so have you, she said. They thought for a while, talked to the doctor, and provided the hospital with all the necessary medical information. Tammy was sitting next to the bed, holding his hand, when Anne entered the room. "Get out of here," Tammy shouted at her. "You left him. He is no longer your husband to fuss with. So go back to your boyfriend and your wonderful new life, because as God is my witness, I will leave you where you stand if you don't get out of here in the next 10 seconds, Tammy said, getting to her feet. Anne cried and left. She spoke with the doctor, gave him her mobile and work numbers, and asked him to be sure to notify her of any changes in his condition. She then went to his house, and when she arrived, she was greeted by an old neighbor. "Isn't this something else? Steve put his life on the line to save all these children without even thinking about the consequences. When he gets out, the whole neighborhood plans to throw him a big party. I heard that the teacher comes to see him every day since the accident. She calls him her knight in shining armor. I guess I can't blame her," he told me. I asked if he still had the key to the house, and if he would let me in. "I think everything will be fine. Everyone was surprised when you broke up. Your husband took it very hard, but I think you already knew that." He let me into the house and left. I had no idea what I was doing at Steve's house. I haven't been back since he changed the locks, and Kenny took the rest of my stuff. Nothing changed. Hell, even the empty hangers were still on the living room floor where he'd thrown my clothes. I went upstairs to what used to be our bedroom. Apart from the lack of my clothes, everything was exactly the same, except for a few holes in the wall where Steve was probably taking out his anger. When I opened the nightstand drawer, I found that all my things were still there, and Steve's things were littered with loose-leaf notebooks. I sat down on the bed, grabbed his pillow, brought it to my face, and smelled it. Yes, it was Steve's scent. I continued to press him to my chest. I placed a pillow on the headboard and lay on his side of the bed, looking at the ceiling. What made me grab the top notebook I never knew I had? I just did it and opened it. This was Steve's last diary. "I never knew," was all Anne told herself as she began to read the outpouring of emotion that Steve had put on paper. His whole heart and soul was poured into these 4 notebooks. It took me almost 3 days of continuous reading to read all 4 of them. About halfway through, I thought that maybe I shouldn't have read them, but I couldn't stop. He talked about our life together, the good times, the not-so-good times, and the breakup. I had no idea that he loved me so much or how much I had hurt him these past 14 months. I never knew about his depression or his plans for our retirement. I cried until my tear ducts were empty. I cursed myself when he wrote that he had forgiven me but could not forget what I had done. By the end of the week, I returned home and returned the diaries to him. I went down the stairs to his office and turned on his computer. Hell, he didn't even change his password. I logged into his AOL account and checked his email. I removed all the trash and made a note to call his boss tomorrow. When I saw the email I sent him a few months ago, I cried again. He saved it, and when I opened the photo, I thought I was going to die. I only sent him to cause as much pain as possible, and it looks like I did just that. I almost deleted it, but it was no longer my computer, and I had no right to even be at home, let alone Steve's computer. Day by day, I was getting better. The patch has come off my left eye, and I will need surgery on my nose in the future to straighten it out. My ribs were healing, as were my legs, but they itched like gunshots under my casts. Luckily, I only had a minor concussion and no brain swelling, but I'm not back to normal yet. The doctor said it was best for my body to be in a coma. It had time to heal on its own without me moving around. My personal nurse Debbie tended to me hand and foot. I no longer needed 24/7 supervision, so she took care of my needs during my waking hours. The only time I felt uncomfortable was when she gave me a sponge bath. One day I tried to apologize, but she told me not to worry about it. If you didn't have tension, then there would be something to worry about, she said with a wink and a smile. I think she was right. Tammy came over almost every day after work, as did Connie, the teacher I rescued. She brought letters of thanks from all the children and said when I feel better, they will all come to the hospital to see me. She was a single mother of about 41 with a 12-year-old girl. I told her she didn't have to come every day, but she insisted. You gave me and my daughter a second chance. It's the least I can do to make sure you feel comfortable and your needs are met. Connie came every day at 4 o'clock and read to me for about an hour. For some reason, her presence made me feel calm and relaxed, and her attractiveness only fueled my impatience for her daily visits. Tammy arrived around 6:30 and usually brought dinner with her. I was forced to eat hospital food, but sometimes she would bring me a Big Mac. I gained about 8 pounds, and it all went into my stomach. We chatted, and she usually left by 8 o'clock. I never saw my kids or my ex-wife, but Tammy said Ann stops by sometimes. What does Kane mean? I shouted at the doctor. Isn't there another operation you can do? I asked. Your right leg was broken in 2 places and is healing well, but your left leg was badly damaged. You have 2 pins holding everything together, and we still have to remove the bone fragments. Steve, I'm just giving you the worst-case scenario, he explained to me. I don't believe it, doctor. I am a runner and have been one all my life. I don't have much of a life outside of this room, and now you're saying I can't even do that anymore. I won't accept this, I told him. What else could go wrong? Everything was great at work. The team did great, and I told them more than once how much I appreciated it. Katie kept me informed, and everything was done on time between us. My checks have been deposited into my savings account, but none of my bills have been paid in the last couple of months. I don't think I realized who else besides me would pay my bills. When the bank sent a foreclosure notice and told me my insurance company had dropped me, I was furious. It only took one call to each to explain my situation. Do you really want to be known as the company that turned me down when I was in a coma after saving 10 little children? I told the insurance company. I used the same line with the mortgage company, and they even went so far as to waive all late fees. However, it's time to make some decisions, especially regarding your home. I contacted the realtor the next day and put it on the market. Anne would get half, but it was time to cut ties and move on. After 10 weeks, I was sent home with a home health nurse. Guess who? Since I had no one at home to take care of me, Debbie was assigned to this task. She settled in the guest room and only stayed overnight when I had problems. Tammy and Connie still came over almost every night, even though I told them it wasn't necessary. Kenny called and Jimmy came to see me the day after I returned. Both apologized for not being there. I told them to forget about it. I already forgot. I also told them that I had put the house on the market. You can't sell the house, Dad. Where will you live? They asked. I'll find an apartment closer to work, and in a couple of years, I'll move to the south. Have you talked to Mom about this? Kenny asked. I haven't talked to your mom since last year. Why should I talk to her now? I asked. Please leave her alone, okay? I already know what she thinks about me. Tammy, Connie, and her daughter Rebecca had a slumber party on Friday night. We ate pizza, drank beer, and ate pecan pie. I couldn't drink beer because of the painkillers, but I still drank 2 bottles. It wasn't until 10:30 that I found out the real reason for the party. Tammy took Rebecca to the store to restock the refrigerator, and Connie came into my room dressed like she could raise the dead. I know it's been a long time, and I know you can't do much, but tonight I want to do this for you. Connie, you don't have to do this, I replied. I know, but I want to, she said. It was nice, really nice, Connie said. If I had a cigarette after sex, everything would be perfect, I told her. Do you smoke? No. We stopped only when our guests returned. When the casts came off, it was both a relief and a burden. I was prescribed physical therapy 3 times a week to start. I would take a taxi to the clinic, they would make me cry, and then I would go home. My therapist was a large black woman who knew no mercy and took no prisoners. She pushed me to my limits and beyond. So you're a runner? She asked. Why are you such a weakling? Do you ever want to run again? Or will you be content with a pair of crutches? She said, mocking me. As I said, I worked until I cried, and then worked some more. I'll show this doctor, I repeated to myself. Mom wants to see you, was all Kenny said on the phone. For what? How do I know? He answered. Do you ever want to see me again? I asked. Because if you keep playing games, you will fall off my list of favorite people. So come on again, why does she want to see me? You. She monitors you from afar, working with doctors and therapists on your rehabilitation. She's afraid to talk to you because of everything that happened before and after the divorce, that's all. What should I tell her? Let her come on Saturday morning after 10 o'clock, and I will talk to her. Hell, I can even be polite to her, I told my son. Connie had some errands to run on Friday night, and Tammy stopped by on her way to a date. Anne wants to see me, I told her. I know, I've been talking to her for the last couple of months, she replied. And you didn't tell me. It was shortly after your accident and after I gave your family a dressing down. She came in to apologize for the scene at the gym, and we started talking. She was keeping an eye on you and wanted daily updates on your condition. Before or after you slept with your current boyfriend? This is a question for her. I suggested that she talk to you herself. That's why she's coming tomorrow, Tammy said. I know you have a lot of mixed feelings about her, so you have the night to ask yourself all the hard questions. I'd love to stay, but it's something you have to do for yourself. So have a good evening, don't get too drunk, and I'll see you tomorrow afternoon for a full report, she said, kissed me on the cheek, and ran away. I took Tammy's words to heart and didn't get too drunk. Just enough so as not to relive the pain that Anne caused me. Enough so that all the anger I've carried inside me for so long can't boil over again. Enough to keep your journals from being carried downstairs and burned in the fireplace. Finally, enough to fall asleep by 10:15 and get a full night's rest. The pain in my leg woke me up at 7:30, and 2 painkillers later, I was making coffee and eating breakfast. By 9 o'clock, I was on the exercise machine I rented in the basement, trying to get my leg to work as it should, and I wasn't doing very well. When I heard the doorbell, it took me almost 5 minutes to leave the torture chamber and go upstairs. Come in, I told Anne, heading to the kitchen to get a bottle of water. Should I get you something? I asked. Not yet. Taking a cold bottle from the refrigerator, I sat down at the kitchen table and collapsed into a chair, wiping the sweat from my forehead with a towel. That's enough training for today, I said, swallowing a third of the bottle. Well, Anne, it's your turn. What do you want to talk about? About us, Steve, she began. Anne, we're not here. Did you throw it away a year ago, or did you forget? I remember and have regretted my decision ever since. You didn't seem too sorry when you slept with Tom and decided to share your impressions with me. I hope he was worth all the trouble, I replied sarcastically. I think I deserve it. I was so angry at you for your little games that I think I went a little crazy. I'm sorry for what I did. You don't have to tell me how sorry you are or apologize for what you did. This is for someone who cares, and I don't care anymore, I told a surprised Anne. So if that's all you wanted to say, it's nice, but I have a lot to do today, and it's taking twice as long to get it done now. Can't you give me another chance? Don't you still have any feelings for me? Asked Anne. They used to be, for a long time, even after your graphic letter. But when you kept it up and stuck the knife in me every chance you got, you killed all those feelings. But I read your diaries, all the things you wrote about us, about the past and our future together, everything. Anne began when I interrupted her. Have you read my diaries? How did you find them? I asked. When you were in the hospital, I came to the house and found them. I didn't know what it was until I started reading. I didn't know you loved me so much, and... She began. Get out. Get the hell out of my house. You don't live here anymore, remember, you left me, I shouted at her. Go back to your boyfriend or boyfriends and leave me alone, I screamed as I stood up and tried to walk out of the kitchen, but my leg gave out and I collapsed on the floor. Let me help you, Anne said, extending her hand as I lay on the floor. I don't need your damn help. Don't you think you've done enough already? I snapped, trying to get up before falling again. This time I felt a sharp pain in my leg as I rolled over. Please go away. Anne, leave me alone, I said, lying on my back like a turtle that can't get up. I heard her start crying as she ran out of the kitchen. The front door slammed and I was left alone again, both inside and outside. I lay there for at least 15 minutes before I tried to get up again. I crawled on my stomach and one good knee towards the couch before dragging my sore ass onto it. I was sweating like a pig as I either passed out from the pain or fell back into a coma. When I opened my eyes, I knew where I was. You didn't want to listen to me, did you? Said the doctor as we moved into the operating room. You broke one pin and left your leg worse than it was before. Lucky for you, I was here when they brought you. So relax, you know the procedure, and I'll see you later in the evening. I woke up in the emergency room and saw the same nurse I saw for the first time a few months ago. Couldn't stay away from me? She asked. I missed gourmet meals and sponge baths, that's all, I said, trying to recover. Relax, get some sleep, and I'll be there when you get to your room. Tammy gave me a dressing down as soon as she entered the room. I'll leave you alone for a minute while you go back to the hospital. Don't I have better things to do than babysit you here? She shouted at me. Not really, I said with the brightest smile. She laughed, I laughed, which was painful. I found you on the sofa with a pin sticking out of your leg. You're lucky I came early to find out how the meeting with Anne went. If it weren't for me, you might lose that leg, then who would run with me? Tammy said, hitting me on the arm. Now that we've got that out of the way, what happened to Anne to have you back in the hospital? Nothing special. She wanted the relationship back and apologized for the pain she caused. That's all, I said. And what? I answered. And what did you tell her? Tammy asked. What do you think I told her? I told her to leave me alone. That's what I told her. What did you really tell her? You've been worried about her for the past year. I know you couldn't do something so stupid. Tell me you didn't screw it up a second time, Tammy said with that same expression on her face. Maybe I was a little harsh with her, especially after she said she had read my diaries. Can you believe she read them? I asked. Steve, I read your damn diaries too. When I was taking care of your house, I found them and read them in one weekend. They were pretty good, by the way. For God's sake, who hasn't read them yet? Maybe we'll publish them in the newspaper. Then everyone can know my affairs, I said with irritation in my voice. Well, if you didn't want them to be read, you should have hidden them. They were in my bedroom, on a nightstand. I don't remember inviting you or Anne into my bedroom for some light reading. Maybe Connie hasn't read them yet? Or are you planning to make a photocopy for her? Who hurt you like that? Okay, I violated your personal space. Sorry, forget about it. How long will you be in the hospital now? She asked. Don't know. The doctor will come later in the evening and inform me. I'm really tired of this place. It's your fault this time. Do you need anything from home? Tammy asked. Just my last diary, if you don't mind. Unopened, please, I said with a smile. You'll probably be here for another 2 or 3 weeks, the doctor said, looking at my x-rays. After this, I will let you go home if and only if you sit in a chair all day. If not, I'll just leave you here until I've maxed out your health insurance. I'll be good, or at least good enough that you won't catch me, I said, trying to add some humor. No jokes this time. One more stupid act like the last one, and you'll be on crutches for the rest of your life. I heard it loud and clear. No more games and no more challenges. The price was too high. Connie has a new boyfriend and she's afraid to tell you, Tammy said Friday night. She was somehow attracted to you, but realized that it was because you saved her life. After our little pajama party, she realized that you were too old for her and felt guilty. She met a good man and they have been dating for the last month, which is why she is so rarely seen. She said she was going to tell you tonight. So don't be a jerk like you did with Anne. She's already feeling bad enough. Connie came in about 15 minutes later. I need to talk to Steve alone, she told Tammy. We watched Tammy leave and Connie made a sad face. Connie, it's not so bad this time. I'll be running the streets in a couple of weeks, I told her. Steve, I need to tell you something, but I don't know where to start, she said as her eyes began to fill with tears. Connie, let me fill in the blanks. You found someone special, right? She nodded. And you feel bad because of what I did? No need. I didn't mean to do what I did, and I don't expect you to owe me the rest of your life. You've been given a second chance. Use it wisely, but use it. Life's too short to waste another minute on an old fool like me. So go and live. However, if you get married, I am waiting for an invitation, I said with a smile. Connie kissed me and promised to keep in touch. Tell your boyfriend for me that if he doesn't treat you well, I'll come for him, I shouted as she walked out. You're a good person, Steve, Tammy said as she walked back into my room. She walked out of here with a smile on her face and a light walk. Then why do I feel so bad? Don't worry, dear, you haven't lost your lover. You've gained a friend for life. Tam, why don't you go home? You probably have a million things to do other than sit here with me. I have my diary and I want to make a couple of entries. Go home, take a walk, do something pleasant. I think my baby needs some alone time, Tam said, kissing me on the lips for the first time. I'll come by on Sunday. Maybe I'll get you a beer. Want? Go. Now, I said, throwing a pillow at her. I spent most of the next day and a half writing in my journal. My psychologist would be proud of me. I thought long and hard about my life and where I wanted to go and who I wanted to go with before finally putting my book away at 2 a.m. on Sunday. The only reason I stopped was Debbie came in, took my journal, and told me it was time for bed. 5 more minutes, I begged. Steve, don't make me be strict. You need rest if you ever want to get out of here. Don't make me give you a sponge bath again, she said with a smile as she approached me with a wet sponge. Tammy brought me a Big Mac and a Crown in an empty ginger ale bottle. It was like heaven. It was so delicious. She stood guard at the door of the room until I finished. We washed the bottle, and I ate a couple of mints to mask the smell. Thank you, I needed this, I said, settling down on the bed, getting ready for the next chapter of my life. What time is it, Tammy? I asked, looking at her sitting on the chair next to my bed. What time is it? How long have you been treating me like this? I asked again. For a long time. About a month after you first asked me to flirt with you. Why didn't you say anything? It took me a while to put 2 and 2 together, and even then I didn't believe it. How old are you? 42, 43. 47, but thanks for the compliment, she said, holding my hand. I was so jealous of Anne. You went to such lengths to get her back, but she didn't care. She tried her best to get back at you, and for what? Because you were trying to bring the spark back into your marriage. I would kill for a man like you to pursue me. My husband died 15 years ago, and he took a part of me with him. You are the first man whom I can honestly call worthy of him, and not only him. I didn't know at first, but the more time we spent together, the more I felt something. But I thought it was just my imagination, I told her. You weren't supposed to know that. Hell, I didn't fully realize it until I found you in the hospital, coming out of your coma. I was so angry at them, at all of them, that I was just seething. I gave them a hard time, and when Anne came into the room to see you, I completely lost control. I told her that she threw you away and you are no longer hers to abuse. That's when I first realized that I wanted you. I wanted to be your Anne. But I'm much older than you. Like I told Connie, why do you need an old brat like me? How many old guys do you know that can run 20 miles? How many old guys are willing to sacrifice their lives to save strangers? How many of them would go to the ends of the earth for the one they love? Not much, I think. I'm not asking you to sweep me off my feet. Hell, Steve, you can't walk yet. But just think about it. That's all. With a kiss, Tammy left, and I was left alone again for the second time in 3 days to think about what I wanted. Over the next 2 weeks, Tammy was a constant visitor to my hospital room. When the doctor came to check on me, he seemed to talk more to Tammy than to me. You have to keep your husband off his feet if he wants his foot to heal, he told Tammy. I'm not Steve's wife, just a friend, she replied. Sorry, it's just that your name is listed on his card as a contact person, and I assumed. No, I'm not married to Steve or anyone else. A week before my scheduled discharge, the doctor came into my room and read me the final dispersal. Here's a list of what he can and can't do. He should exercise his leg, but not overdo it. Here's my business card with my home phone number, he said, handing it to Tammy. Call me anytime, day or night, if you have any questions or need anything else. 2 weeks later, I was home again, sitting in my torture chamber, trying to strengthen my good leg. After 2 months, I made more progress without overdoing it. With my iPod in my ears and the music at full volume, I didn't hear her come down the stairs. She looked at me for several minutes before speaking. If you try too hard, you'll end up back in the hospital and I'll have to babysit you again, she screamed so I could hear her over the music. I'm just trying not to get stiff, I replied. The doctor said I can start exercising the other leg in 2 weeks, and I plan to test it outside by Christmas. What do you think? You'll never learn, will you? Yes, my angel, I said when she got close enough for a kiss. As she stepped back and began unbuttoning her white work blouse, I realized she had another workout on her mind. I got off the exercise machine, took off my t-shirt and shorts, and walked up to her. We made love. Now get dressed. Tammy and her boyfriend are coming over for dinner, and I'm going to need your help. I was about to say something about my leg injury, but she interrupted me. Remember who you're talking to, she said as she walked up the stairs, still naked. She didn't accept my banter as she was now running the house as well as her job. You see, she saw me at my worst and loved me for who I truly am. It also didn't hurt that she was a beast in bed. Tammy wasn't happy when I told her I wanted to be her best friend. I told her that the age difference was only part of the problem and that I valued her more as a friend than as a potential lover or partner. However, we did check on each other one night just to be sure. It would be heaven to stay in her arms forever, but sex wasn't everything. I learned this the hard way. When she asked if I would go back to Anne, I just shook my head. You see, Anne wanted me back because I was easy. I was predictable, and she knew she could always count on me to do whatever she wanted. Anne knew she had made mistakes, but she thought we could overcome them. However, I could never get that picture of her and Tom out of my head, even after I erased it from my computer. Everyone told me I was making a huge mistake by not going back to Anne, but it was my mistake. Jimmy and I still talk weekly. He told me to follow my heart and take on as many women as I could. I took his advice. My opinion has already been made anyway. With the house sold, I moved in with Debbie. Her place wasn't big, and I had to get rid of 75% of the old furniture. You see, she had a king-size bed, and we didn't leave the bedroom for many weekends. You can say, we lived by love. You see, after one of her famous sponge baths, we took it to the next level more than once. Those last 2 weeks in the hospital were almost the best 2 weeks of my life. We had enough time to talk and get to know each other. We had a lot in common, and our differences didn't matter. She was just what the doctor ordered. Speaking of doctors, this is who Tammy is currently dating. The doctor who performed both surgeries on my legs. Even after our conversation, she was always there, and the doctor too. It got to the point that he began to communicate more with her than with me when he came to the ward. After that, there was coffee in the hospital cafeteria, then a movie, then dinner, and then, well, I guess there's no need to continue, right? I now hang out with Tammy on the weekends and hope to run my first 5K race in 2 months, with Debbie's permission, of course. As I said, Debbie now runs the house. She never let me forget that if I screwed up, she would kick my ass, and if I didn't trust her to just try. Am I happy? Yes. Do I plan to marry Debbie? Not now, maybe in the future after we move to Sarasota. Would I do it all again? In no case. Subscribe to our channel so that your love doesn't cheat on you, and go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one. If you're under 18, don't even think. Click to the next one. Click to the next one. Click to the next one. Click to